This is Brian, ScreenFiles.com in review. And what I'm looking at today is 2020's Synchronic. I think I pronounced that right. In any case, it's directed by Moorhead and Justin Benson. And first I need to give you a little background. The first film I saw from Moorhead and Justin Benson is 2012's Spring. And that's a pretty good movie. It's not a great movie, but it's pretty good. And I mention it because at that time I didn't think very much of it or them as directors. As I said, it's well shot, it's interesting, Lovecraftian overtones to it, but on the whole, it's not a great movie. It's fine, it's good, it's watchable, but it's not great, not by any stretch. Though the movie that changed my mind about Moorhead and Benson was 2014's Resolution. And I didn't think much of it at the time, nor did I know Moorhead and Justin Benson directed it. All I knew was that it was a pretty good movie. Once again, kind of Lovecraftian in terms of its themes, but it was quite unlike anything I've seen before, or since for that matter. Well, that's not really true. It is similar to some things I've seen after the fact, but it's really innovative, and I'm not going to tell you why. If you haven't seen Resolution, check it out. It is, for my money, the best movie they've done thus far. So after that, when I realized who directed it, I began to search out movies by the two directors. The Endless, I thought, was interesting. It wasn't bad. It was one of the first movies I saw from them that had them also playing the lead actors as well. They act fine, but it wasn't, on the whole, a great movie. Once again, like Spring, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. Though The Endless has ties to Resolution, which I think are just so interesting. Though at the end of the day, The Endless is just good. It's nothing incredible. So when I heard that Moorhead and Benson were going to be working with Anthony Mackie on 2020's Synchronic, I was really curious. If only because Anthony Mackie is a very charismatic, interesting actor, and as I've implied, Moorhead and Benson are pretty interesting directors. So what do I think about Synchronic? It is probably the most mainstream of Moorhead and Benson's efforts, and probably the most special effects heavy. The effects aren't out of this world interesting, but there's a lot of them, and as I implied, you don't see a lot of that in their movies. So that was interesting. Though, as I said, this is probably their most mainstream effort. And as a result, there's certain costs, if you will, to that. Synchronic revolves around these two paramedics, played by Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan. And Dornan's marriage is kind of falling apart, while Mackie has a fatal ailment. And in their work, they come upon people who have been taking this drug called Synchronic, which has the ability for, I believe, 7 minutes to send the taker back in time. And this is the interesting thing. You have no control of when you go back in time or where you go back in time. In fact, when and where you go back in time can be entirely based upon where you have to be standing when you take the drug at any particular moment. Or I should say, when the drug kicks in. So you can be in one part of the room and be in the Arctic in the past, and another part of the room be in some other time period in the same place. The place doesn't change. So For instance, I'm standing in the District of Columbia. If I were to take Synchronic, I would still be standing in the District of Columbia, though the time that I'm there would change. So, and it only goes backward. It doesn't go into future. This is an interesting take on the time travel story. It makes no real sense, but it's interesting and it's pretty innovative, and it's something that I've come to expect from Moorhead and Benson. Though there's some problems with the story. For instance, Anthony Mackie's character has a pineal gland which is atypical, and it acts like the pineal gland of a younger person. This makes it interact with Synchronic in a very particular manner. In other words, it enables the user to go back in time. As I said, this is a ludicrous idea. It's interesting and it's innovative, but it's also ludicrous. And the way the movie uses it, it does so in a very inconsistent fashion. By which I mean, as I said, it establishes that older people, due to the aging of our pineal gland, cannot use Synchronic. No one gives their age, but they don't look any older. Using Synchronic, having the same effect as it does with Anthony Mackie's character, as well as a younger person. It's inconsistent storytelling, and it's really odd, because it is a very interesting and innovative idea. And I wish that Moorhead and Benson had at least made allowances for this fact, and somehow explain why it's happened to work in Mackie's instance with his abnormal pineal gland, and yet also works in other adults, which I assume they don't have abnormal pineal glands. The story doesn't tell you that, but it also treats having an abnormal pineal gland as very unusual and out of the ordinary. So it doesn't quite mesh, even if you accept the logic of the story. It doesn't quite make sense. But that being said, it's a pretty good movie. As I mentioned earlier, it's somewhat mainstream-ish for a Moorhead and Benson movie, but it's not their best work. At least I don't think it is. For that, you need to check out Resolution. And I should also mention that I made an effort to deliberately not tell the meat of the story, because it's very interesting and you need to discover that yourself. That being said, Anthony Mackie is a really interesting actor in a lot of ways. One way in particular, he is not afraid to die or have something happen to him in the movies that he makes. This is unusual. I mean, the first time I saw this happen with Tom Cruise was in Collateral, the Michael Mann movie, and that's the only time I've seen it in his career thus far. While Anthony Mackie, while being an A-list actor at this point, not quite Tom Cruise level to be sure, but certainly an A-list actor, is willing to have situations where his character does not come out on top. That's really interesting. Though in the context of this movie, and dealing with the fact that Mackie is a black man, Justin Benson's writing comes off a little tone deaf at the end. I'm not going to tell you why, but it is a story about sacrifice, and it doesn't come off that well. In any case, what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow.